Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to our first little stream here we got going on. It's kind of a little bit of a test stream. So if you're watching this and you see scenes sort of jiggling and just acting strange and going back between stuff, well, that's why. That's why. So let's switch this over real quick. Then I'll kind of give you an overview of what's kind of happening and what to expect from this particular stream, which, not much, but we'll get to it in a second. All right, my name is Benjamin Lehman. I have a little title card right here. I'll bring this up real quick. Boom, look how, oh my God, it's so professional right now. But my name is Benjamin Lehman. I'm a creative director here at Warrior Beat. And Warrior Beat, if you are familiar, if you've seen the Warrior Beat stream before, it's not about what we're looking at here. Normally it's about things like drums. We've got drums all over the place here. We got our bongos here. We've got a gigantic 18-inch floor tom there, a really cool cajon there, snare drums. This whole room right now is sort of filled with two things. It's filled with camera equipment and drumming equipment, because normally we do drum therapy. But we also are more than just some of our parts. We do a lot of other things. One of the things that we also do is art therapy in general. So not only do we do drum therapy, but we also do art therapy. And by art therapy, I mean we have myself, who I am a 20-year experience graphic designer and photographer. And then we have two literally just amazing musicians, including one of them, which is like a world-class percussionist. His name's Mike Reyes. And then Trevor Meyer, who is an absolutely amazing drummer. Both those guys are also military veterans. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. But one of the things that I want to do is I want to start doing more than just the drumming stuff, because not everybody is totally everybody loves music, but not everybody wants to make it. So we're trying to add some new stuff to our lineup, and one of those things is other forms of art therapy. And the reason why we're doing this is because art is just a great way to express yourself. Art is an amazing way to sort of take what's inside and to share it with people. And sometimes it's a safer way to share things. Art therapy is interesting because if you perform therapy for people, then you'll understand that getting people to sort of talk about their feelings, getting people to sort of come to grips with what's happening in their lives, their struggles and their challenges, it's not always the easiest thing to do, to just talk with somebody and have them sort of voluntarily. I mean, there's just big mental blocks. People aren't able to break those barriers sometimes by themselves. That's why therapy exists in the first place. The nice thing about art therapy is that you can express yourself quite often in a way that's a lot more familiar to people, right? I mean, it's, if you sit down and we're talking and you're dealing with anger, stress, anxiety, it might be really hard to sort of tackle all that stuff verbally. It can be hard just from sort of making yourself vulnerable. It can be hard to just sort of actually figure out a way to communicate what's causing those problems. A lot of people really have to work through their anxieties and their stresses and their depressions before they understand what the root cause is. And then once you figure that out, then you have to sort of figure out a way to work through it. With art therapy, say like with drumming, if somebody's dealing with a lot of anxiety, you are able to drum that anxiety out right then. You are able to express your anxiety through the physical nature of hitting a drum. And that's my dog. My dog is locked out of my studio and he is bummed. So he'll probably be coming in here shortly. In fact, Pin, can you wait just like a second? He's not having it. But art therapy, and the same thing is true for music, for painting, any types of art, dance, it's a way to sort of express yourself without having to, to use the words that are sometimes vulnerable. Like, To say, for some people to say, I'm sad, and I'm sad because I don't feel loved, or I feel alone, or I have anxiety because something that happened to me 5 years ago, I'm been unable to talk about it, and I don't even know where now to even begin to unpack it. Like those kinds of things, to translate that to feelings and emotions, to then words, and then to communication, it's very hard. But art, much easier, quite oftentimes much easier. In fact, science shows that if you hand somebody a drum and you just have them just play whatever comes to their mind, they can either beat on it or they can make beautiful music with it, doesn't matter. When they're done with it, they're actually more capable of relaying their emotions verbally. So drumming and art therapy is also a fantastic way to supplement traditional therapy. So that's why we're here. We're here because art therapy it's both good for, even if you're not dealing with a problem, you could be at home right now and be like, my life is good, I feel great, no depression, whatever. This is still part of that routine. This is still part of that healthy routine. If you are a person who's struggling with depression or substance abuse or anything like that, anxiety, physical or some sort of mental challenges, this is also part of that health routine. In fact, this is a great place to start. It might be a really easy place to start, right? So what we're going to be doing here is, if you stay tuned, you're going to see a lot of drumming stuff. There's going to be a lot of drumming stuff. That is our focus. But like I said, I do other forms of art. I paint, I draw, I do stuff digitally, pretty much the whole gamut of digital art. And I also do a lot of photography. And I love photography. And the reason why I love photography is because I think it's one of those art forms that everybody has access to. And I know this is so cliche to be like, hey, if you've got a phone, a smartphone, you can do photography, but it is true. Everything that we do here with this, you can also do if you have, if you have a bigger camera like this, right? So this is an EOS R with a big lens on it. But everything we do with this big guy, we can do with this big guy or little guy, whatever size your phone is, doesn't matter. And if you've got another camera, you got a point and shoot, you got a Polaroid, you got anything, it's all going to work, right? Because we're going to be talking about techniques and concepts, where to start, how to problem solve. We are going to be using some tools of the trade, but you don't have to use these exact tools of the trade. You can do everything that we're going to talk about with a couple like lamps. Like here is what's something known as continuous light. But what is this? This is no different than like a lamp, a desk lamp. A desk lamp can be used for the stuff that we're doing. I'm going to be using some more specialized stuff, but I don't want you to feel like if you don't use the exact same equipment that I'm using, that you're left out. The thing is like, you're not left out. You are definitely included. And if you have any questions, you can always ask. And I'll do my best to answer it, especially when it comes to sort of the disparities, right? Because you're going to see me use a remote trigger, and I've got studio flashes, and then you might be like, well, what if I don't have a remote, or what if I want to do like this lighting technique, but you're using this equipment and I've got this equipment? I want you to be like able to ask, and then I shall answer. Okay? Groovy. So we're just going to kind of get right into it. I work really good with feedback, with people asking questions. It's our first stream. There's nobody here. So if you're watching on YouTube right now, there's like nobody here. I've done these like things before where we do have people involved. Right now, it's brand new. It's kind of test stream. So not that big of a deal. All right. So we're just going to go ahead and kind of get into some stuff. So the first thing I should just mention is that we have somebody in the studio to help us. I call this guy Mr. Grayface. Mr. Grayface is just a styrofoam head with some sort of like soft gray flocking. And the nice thing about Mr. Grayface is he's easy to photograph. We can put him in a place and he won't move. And he can be there for hours. And whatever instructions that we give him, he'll take. In honor of Miley Cyrus's new mullet, Mr. Grayface does in fact have a mullet because, why not? I don't know. I have a gray face with a mullet. This is how we're starting the stream. This is probably the peak. You can tune out now. And so we've got Mr. Grayface here in our background. So he's just going to hang out there. And I'm going to make Mr. Grayface roughly, I wasn't kissing him, okay? He is handsome though. I'm just going to try to make him sort of like the same height as I am. So he's relatable. And then some other pieces of equipment that we have that you might have available to you right now, or you might not, which is I have a couple light stands. That's what this is. I have a light stand over here with a modifier. We'll talk about modifiers. I've got this continuous light here that we showed you earlier. And then I've got a camera. Now I'm going to be using my EOS R, my expensive camera today, because it's easy for me. It connects to my computer. It makes it easy for you to see what it is that I'm doing. So, you know, it just makes the stream easier. But as far as questions go, if you look at this, and again, like I said before, if you got questions, why are you using that camera? You know, I get asked some things all the time. What's better, Sony or Canon or Nikon? What's better, Android or iPhone? I'll tell you right now, none of those things matter. They're all equal. I've got a Canon here. There's a Panasonic filming us right there. Here's an Alienware using an Apple monitor. Yeah, just everything is everywhere, okay? I am an equal opportunist. In fact, I am a cheap photographer, meaning I try to do as much as I can, spending as little as possible. Because if you own a business and you want, in photography, if you're just a hobbyist, it will be a very expensive hobby. If you're professional, it's a very expensive sort of line of work to get into, especially when you need to get all your stuff. So let's talk about the kind of things that we can expect today. So I'm going to take our camera here, and we're using a piece of software called Adobe Lightroom. And if you have done photography ever before, and maybe you're sort of like a pro amateur, or you know, you're familiar with the photography world, then Adobe is definitely a word you know, and Lightroom is a word you should probably be fairly familiar with, okay? So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take this camera, and we're going to point it at Mr. Grayface back here, and we're just going to take a picture. All right, so here we go. Transition over here real quick. Get that out of the way. And so there's a setting. You know how like cameras become super smart, and now every piece of equipment you have sort of has a button that does all the work for you? Cameras are the same, right? So if I put this on aperture priority and I just sort of take a picture of this guy's face here. Here we go. 1, 2. Oops, 1, 2. All right, I just took a picture using something called aperture priority. And in this aperture priority mode, the camera is making all the decisions. I'm doing nothing other than focusing. You know, I'm pressing the button. In some cases, that's all you have to do. You just point, you press the button. That's why they're called point and shoot. So in this case, all I did was I just took my camera, pointed at Mr. Grayface, and I took this picture. And for a lot of people, this is the picture that you'll be taking. Because, you know, when you're new to photography, you sort of just take the world as it's given to you. And there's some pros and cons to that. You know, the pro is sort of, it's historically accurate. You know, the picture that you just took is the picture that was there on that day. And, you know, I'll get into, that may sound ridiculous to say that because, of course, that's the picture that was there. But the next part of that is you have the ability to craft these images as much as you want, right? I mean, like, for instance, just having Mr. Grayface sort of look in a slightly different direction. You know, that's a different photo. Just the gesture is different. In this case, I turned him physically, but, you know, out in the field, you might ask your subject to turn their face a little bit that way, or their whole body turn that way. Bring that foot forward, that foot back, or whatever, right? So already, we're manipulating the photo. That is, at its core, a type of manipulation. Also, when we look at the photo, we can see that it's kind of purpley bluish. You know, there's a lot of, like, Mr. Grayface doesn't look super, super gray. And that's because these lights back here that are LEDs, they're kind of they're a very sort of pinky purpley LED. They're more of a stage light than they are like a video light. This one here, off to my direct right, that one is for video. That's perfectly white. But those back there are not. They're kind of bluish, kind of pinkish. They're very cold colored lights. So, you know, the first thing we could do is we could change the white balance, can't we? Yes, we can. So let's do that. Let's just set it to auto. See how auto does. You ready? 1, 2. All right. Let's see if this looks a little bit more like brownish. There's just a little bit more brown in there, and you can see it here in his face. But the truth is, even that's not really all that. There's not a big difference there. Like, it went from cool to slightly cool, or slightly less cool. If we color correct it physically, like I just did, look at the difference between that. Here's the picture color corrected, because he's truly gray, so we can use that gray tone to color correct. Look how blue it is versus that. That's pretty crazy, right? So that's another thing. We are actually capable of manipulating color. And if you don't believe me, watch this real quick. Let me show you something. I'm not going to even touch the software. I'm just going to do this completely inside the program. Okay, you ready? 1, 2. Look at this color. I didn't do anything. All I did was move one setting inside of the camera to expect one type of light, when in reality we have a whole nother type of light. And that result of this expecting one type when we're supplying a different type is this looks blue. Looks really blue. I mean, it doesn't look blue, it is blue. So that's kind of interesting, right? So now we've learned how to sort of control our subject a little bit. We've learned how to control the color a little bit. You know, there's other things we can do real quick. Watch this. If I take the shutter speed and I increase the shutter speed dramatically, okay? Here we go. 1, 2. So I've increased the shutter speed. The picture got a whole lot darker. Again, I've controlled more stuff. I'm going to let my dog in because he is so sad. He's so sad, and we love our dog. Come here, buddy. Pin, come here. Come on. All right. Here comes the Mr. Pinion. I've got a bunch of dogs up here, but Pinion is our son. I don't want to get into the messy details of how he's our biologically, he's my biological son. I don't want to get into that, but anyway, you just have to, let's just right off the bat, some of the things I say, just take my word for it, okay? All right, and that dog, me being his biological father, I don't want to get the feds involved. All right, oh, hi, buddy. Hi, big boy. You're such a good boy. All right, you're going to see a lot of him. All right. So we've learned how to change the brightness of the light, the color of the light. We can change the expression. We can manipulate kind of, you know, the positioning and the posing, the color. Did I say color? We can do the color. And if I already said it, we can do the color twice. So we are already learning that the camera can do a lot of things, even with just what we have available. In fact, available is a term used in photography. Available light, available color, available whatever. Usually when you take a picture, you're just taking a picture of what's available. Now, if you go out to a park and there's 30 people in the exact same park and they're taking a picture of the exact same, whatever it is, a pond with a duck on it, all 30 of those pictures will look different. I mean, like, especially if they all take them at the same time, because first of all those lenses can't occupy the same space. Chances are they're not going to be taken all at the exact same time, you know. So just by moving around that pond, having 30 people spread around a space, taking a picture whenever they get a chance to, you're going to end up with 30 very unique pictures. The subject matter will obviously be a duck on the pond, but the pictures will each be different. So that's something that, you know, there's times where, and I'm telling you this story because there's times where a lot of times I get asked, why does your picture look different than mine? Or why does your picture look better than mine? I need to go buy a better camera. And it's like, that's not it. The camera is not it. If you go on Google and you type in, you know, awesome iPhone camera photos, you're going to see a whole bunch of amazing photos, from portraits to landscapes to everything, right? And it has nothing to do with the fact that their iPhone is a better iPhone than yours, or that they're lying that they're not using an iPhone. They're definitely using an iPhone, and they might be using an iPhone older than yours, right? The point is, they have learned some core concepts. Those concepts could include lighting. Those concepts could include composition. It could just be a bunch of production style, problem solving, right? They could have just figured out a good location and a good time of day, and they had the perfect model in front of them, or they know that if they're in that grove at that time of day, the waterfall looks this way as opposed to high noon. I mean, have you ever taken a picture in the middle of summer at noon, and you get those shadows that are like 3 feet long on people's faces, and the photos are just like their faces are pitch black, and all you can see is like the edge of their heads? That's just noon lighting. You take that same photo at like 7 o'clock when the sun is setting, and all of a sudden it's got that beautiful sort of moody, and like the shadows are no longer like in their eyes, and their face is lit, or maybe they're backlit. That's the difference between noon and 7 o'clock at night lighting. Same with 7 o'clock in the morning lighting, right? Let me just make sure nobody's got any questions yet. And so far, so good. All right. So we've already talked about how to control some of the aspects. Well, then what are the rules of photography? How do we sort of create this toolbox of rules that we can use to sort of help us mitigate problems and propagate positives in our photography? The first thing I would say is, like, don't ever fall when somebody says, well, this is the first rule of photography, or this is a rule of photography. Like I've been saying, and I've been saying it on purpose, because the truth is there are no photography rules, okay? There are no rules whatsoever. When you're doing photography, there is no set of rules that will make you have a fantastic photo. There are guidelines that will sort of help direct and steer you in better directions, but there's no rules. Even if they're called the rule, they call it the rule of thirds. And the rule of thirds is, if you take your subject who's in the middle of the frame, I'm about to fall over. So I'm in the middle of the frame. If I move slightly off to the side, that's a more pleasing frame, right? Because now it's like not everything is completely symmetrical. Well, that's not always true. It's a good guideline. It's a good starting point. If you're sitting there and you're taking a picture of a mountain, try to put the mountain off to the side of the left or the right. Or maybe you just get the peak at the very bottom and the whole top is that blank sky of negative space, and you just have this silhouette. You know what I mean? Or it's the opposite. You really drag it down, and you kind of leave the peak sort of cropped off the top and leave people guessing sort of what's up there. These are guidelines. They are not rules. Close that door, get it a little warmer in here. Yeah, guidelines versus rules. Don't trust anything called a rule. Anything called a rule is bad. Other things. Oh, Pin, you got an itch? Here, let me get it. Is that it? He got an itch. All right, am I getting it, bud? I feel like I got it. Okay, he says I got it. And that's it. Everything else, I want you to break. Anytime somebody tells you this is a rule, the first thing you should probably do is go try to see what happens when you break the rule. All right, because you might actually get a really cool, not only will it probably make you stand out from the crowd who's all following the rules, but you might get a better result. So, for instance, to go back to this whole rule of thirds thing, we got our subject here. Yeah, let me change the all right, so here we go. We're right dead smack in the middle of this guy. You ready? 1, 2, 3. So we got this picture that's right in the middle. So that is sort of like a symmetrical. So they say the rule of thirds gives you something a little bit more like this. So we've moved him off to the side. Now this is not like a really cool example because it's a boring photo, right? But it's different, and maybe it helps, but which one's better, that one or that one? It's hard to say. It kind of just depends on the photo that you're trying to take. If you're trying to take a photo where you need to have a bunch of text on screen because maybe it's for a print ad, this one here off to the side might be easier. Or maybe this one if you want to do it avant-garde. There's no rules. In fact, I think in this case, I kind of like the middle one better than this one. That one feels kind of forced and boring. All right? So we're already learning things about ourselves. What about dramatics? How do we control the dramatics of something? Well, check this out. I've got this light. I'm just going to put this light right here in front of our subject. All right? So this light is dead on in the front of our subject. I'm going to take a picture right now. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, man. You know those pictures where you're at a club or it's like nighttime and somebody takes your picture with the flash on and it just looks like, you're being held hostage and they're about to write a ransom note to your parents and here's the proof that they got you? That's this photo. Why do these photos look like that when you have the flash on? Because everybody's taught you in the past, oh, turn your flash on. That way I can see you. Well, flashes are not always good. I use flash all the time. Not always a good thing to do. All right? Look at this. I can backlight myself. Look at that. Flashes are not always a really cool thing. Sometimes a flash is bad. In this case, in this photo, that's a terrible flash. That is a horrible looking flash. Because it's driver's license light. This is the kind of dynamic light you get when you go to the DMV. Nobody ever looked at their driver's license photo and went, wow, that's arty. They're sort of wanted poster-esque. And when you have a big bright light directly in front of your subject like this one is, that's the kind of photo you take. But what happens if all I do is I move the light over a couple degrees like that, and then maybe get really crazy and sort of lift it up above our subject, just a hint. All right, let's take this photo, shall we? Yes, we shall. Here we go. 1, 2. Guess what? This is a way cooler photo. This is actually not a terrible photo. There's something kind of cool here. What makes it cool? What makes it cool is the fact that there's some shadow, that there's some drama. You can see this little hint, like right here. This little hint of light on the cheek. That sort of informs the side of the face. Obviously, you can tell it's Mr. Gray face. We've lit this guy in such a way that kind of looks cool. I mean, this is pretty cool. And we can do more with it. Oh, there goes the Grace. She is our resident Mennonite. All right. So I can put the light. I'm just going to move the light even further off to the side, okay? So here we go. Here comes another picture. And again, we're kind of getting sort of a cool little effect. We're starting to get a little bit of that light here. Some of the ambient light is filling in the shadow side. So again, this is kind of cool. This is kind of cool. And now we can combine two of the things. We can basically turn his face at the same time. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. So I turned his face and I have the light off to the side. Ooh, moody. Super moody. Super easy too. Super easy to do this. So we're still kind of getting that really cool kiss of light just there on the eye. That's awesome. Super, super awesome. And we're doing it with this. Just by having this thing right there, right? This light turning his head. We got a little bit of a beautiful golden crest on his mullet. You know he's got a rich head of hair. He's obviously either been to the hair club or he is actively taking Propecia. We don't know, but he's got a lot of hair, all right? He might be like Dr. Disrespect's cousin. We're not sure. This is the blonde mullet versus the, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so another really cool thing we're able to do just with a little bit of light. All right, let's go over here real quick. All right. Excellent. Everything's still working. Everything's working fantastic, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, we're getting a lot of... Cool. Excellent, excellent. We got a couple people popping in and out. Feel free to ask questions at any time. That's why we are here. Ta-da. Oh, and let me change one setting in OBS so I can see. There we go. That's just better for me. Okay. And then since we're here, we might as well just go ahead and finish the concept. Put the light directly behind Mr. Grayface. And we'll just have him looking directly at us, okay? And we'll get this glorious picture. Kind of looks like he has blue devil horns, but you know, that's just, that blue in the background is the bracket of the light. But you know, you see on news sets and movies like where the guy sort of his hair is lit, and that's, it literally is called a hair light, and that's all that's going on there. So that is quite honestly some of the simplest forms of lighting you can do and actually get fairly easy, quick, and good results. All right, set this guy back up for us. It's my light. That's my light, Mr. Grayface. Okay, so when you're doing photography, that's one of the things you can use. We're using something called continuous light. In this case, it's just an LED, and you can control that LED. You can make the light seem bigger than it really is, and I'll explain that real quick. And then as we progress in our series, we will talk more about a lot of the minutia, you know, the details of what I'm talking about, because when you're doing like a 30, 40 minute or an hour long stream, there's a lot of stuff that kind of goes untouched. But let me give you an example. If I move Mr. Grayface and I bring our light back, I'm gonna try to put this as far away from the camera as possible. All right. Okay, so there's our light, and you can see it is just a spot. In fact, if I get in front of it, I can easily block it with my head. I don't have a massive head, but it would seem otherwise. But check this out. Here's a large piece of white fabric, and if you put that in front of the light, you can see that the white fabric actually gets fairly illuminated. And maybe we should turn this light off back here real quick so you can kind of really see what I'm talking about. Very dark, very small, but as I put this white fabric in front of it, you can see how the white fabric, which isn't lit naturally, kind of takes on the entire property of that light. That light really sort of fills that entire fabric. Well, that's a really useful thing to understand, because you can take a small light and you can make it seem absolutely massive just by putting something that we call a modifier in front of it. A big white piece of cloth, a bed sheet, or any sort of numerous amounts of specialty built devices. Like, so for instance, This softbox here is a tool that you put a small light into, and that small light is spread out along the entire surface that you see here. And I've never tried this. Let's see what happens if I just kind of carefully put this. Whoops, that's the wrong handle, man. Step 1, use the right handle. Turn off this light again, because I'm curious. I don't even know. Oh yeah, you can see it's very dim, but you can see now, even though there's a hot spot here in the middle, it's actually all across the entire size of this thing. If I turn up the exposure, you should be able to see a little bit more of just, there you go. Can you see kind of how much space that sort of covers, which I think is pretty cool. So that's what modifiers do. They basically modify the properties of a light to match something more in line of what you're trying to achieve. Now for our purposes, when we use modifiers, or when I use modifiers, I'm using them in conjunction with something known as flash. What is flash, you ask? Well, I'm glad you did ask, because it just so happens I've got 1,000 of them. And I've been waiting to segue to this very question. So let me get into my little bag here. These are all packed up from previous evening's use. Ta-da! This is a flash. If I turn it on and I hit this button, it also works as sort of like a makeshift light. But most importantly, let me move this guy out of the way. Put him back. If we take our softbox again, and then I put our tiny flash, and you can see how big this flash is compared to the whole box. If I put him in here, oh my goodness, look at how much light we have now. Look at that. That whole box is erupting with light. We took a light that's about this big, and we made it that big. And this thing is massive. Now, there's a very important reason why you want to make small lights into big lights. And that is because large lights are soft. What does that mean? Let's find out. Stay tuned for this next photo. 1, 2, 3, boom. All right, here comes a soft light. He's a little dark here. I'll brighten it up for you so you can get a better idea. There we go. That's a much better photo. Much better photo. So look how soft this light is. And if I grab that one and say that one and this one, and we hit the compare. Nope. All right. Put that guy there. Put this guy here. So here's a side-by comparison of what hard light looks like next to soft light. There is no comparison. I mean, which one's better? That is completely subjective, but the differences are massive. Don't believe me? Look at the shadow termination. See how that shadow just ends really harshly there? And the shadow right here under the bag of the eyes. And then over here, you know, you can still see the shadow, but look at how much gradation is between sort of one side to the other. So if we zoom in on the nose, and you can just see, whoopsie, why would you do this to me? Don't do this. The left side is obviously a little more zoomed in than the right side, but you can see just how dark that is on the left side without the softbox, which is what it's called if I haven't mentioned that. So, you know, it's called softbox. Chances are the light's going to be soft. But there's more to it than just that. So for instance, I said these were flashes, meaning if I turn this flash off right now and I take a picture of Mr. Grayface, it's going to look like this. Very dark, very dark. But if I turn on the flash, and I think this is B group. Yep. All right, so now the flash is on. I'm going to take that same picture. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. And now you can see that's a whole lot brighter. In fact, that is the picture with just what's called the modeling light, the light that's always on. And then here's the photo with the flash actually firing. Much brighter, much brighter. In fact, if we just kind of get up into the face, modeling light, no flash, with flash, and that's also with really low flash. If I come over here and I crank this up 2 stops, a stop is a term for how much light is coming out, and I take that same picture one more time, watch this. It's about to get nuclear. You ready? 1, 2, boom. Whoops. Which? Sorry, I'm super shaky. All right, ready? Let's try it again. I think it's confused. Oh, okay, here we go. Sorry. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Now it's going to be nuclear white. See what I mean? You cannot achieve that level of holy crap. I mean, that is the same picture as that, only with a whole lot more light. I mean, the details are gone. If we scrub this all the way down, there is no information on the left side of the face. It is so overexposed. There's so much light in it. I think that's kind of interesting. So one of the things that we'll be exploring over the next few weeks, or just actually throughout our entire journey here, is how to control light, how to take portraits, how to do landscapes, the motivations behind things like product photography. You know, some people might want to take their hobby, which is photography, and turn it into something more. You know, you might literally want to become a photographer, which I think would be awesome. It would be really great to have people here who are interested in going further than maybe just be on their phone or become a professional. There are professional iPhoneographer. It's called iPhoneography after the iPhone. So that is something to kind of, and that's, I'm not even joking. Don't even snicker, because it's real and people make a lot of money doing it. It's a true thing. So these are all things to sort of contemplate. And I would be really happy to see if people kind of came along the journeys. But also, I want people to interact. I do really well when there is feedback and interactions and questions. You know, suggestions. Hey, what happens if I take that light and I move it over there and I turn it up? What happens if I remove all the light? I hear people talk about natural light, or natural light is better. Why do they say that? What does that even mean? You know, there's a lot of things to go through photography, and because it's an art form, everything we learn is subjective. What works for one situation will not always work for any other situation. If you're doing it for a client, everything you do for 30 clients, you may have to do differently just for one other client. You know, you might like black and white photography, but every now and then you might want to do a color photo, or vice versa, you know? So there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of time, and photography is great because we can all pick it up quickly, we can get really good at it, and then we can spend the rest of our lives trying to perfect it. It's an infinite, always moving sort of pinnacle that you can never quite reach. There are some of those really gifted people who will always be in that 99 percentile, that last 1% of the greatest photographers or artists. But the beautiful thing about art is no one will ever reach sort of that 100% pinnacle. But you get to chase it. And the chase is fun, all right? That's not a depressing thing that you can't reach it. That's the fun part. Because it means that because nobody can reach it, that we're kind of all on equal footing. There's people that maybe you look at and you go, oh, I'll never take a picture like that. And that's not true. You can actually take a picture like that. And I have this theory that people can reach the top 10% really quickly. And then what happens after that, that final 10%, that's where people really become masters and prodigies and all that kind of stuff, right? Prodigies are just people who get to that top 10% faster than anybody else. So when they say, oh, this 12-year-old prodigy piano player who plays like Mozart, well, they're not saying that they're better than Mozart. They're just saying, look, this person got there at 12, right? Just because maybe, you're older than 12, you could be in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, you could be 90 years old. We can still get you to that place, that last 10%, where then we can, grow and explore even more. So you're not locked out of anything here. There is no glass ceiling. That is a complete fallacy. And as much as you're willing to sort of dedicate yourself to this, some things you want to be careful of. There's something called GAS, gear acquisition syndrome, or really your favorite part of photography, the gadgets and the gizmos, the gadgets and the gizmos. I know a couple people who every time I talk to them, they're like, hey dude, I just bought this new thing and I'm getting another new thing and this new thing and this new thing and I really want this new thing and it's been a while since I got a new thing. And they never once talk about the photos because that's not really what they're there for. They're there because it's like the people who crank on cars. And that's cool. I don't have a problem with that. That's not me. I used to be excited about my equipment when it was new. You know how whenever you get something new, you're like, oh, this laptop, that monitor, these flashes, my camera. But then at some point I realized when I got a new camera, really all it did was it just put certain tools more quickly in my fingertips. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I stopped becoming excited about the toys. They stopped becoming toys and they became tools, basically. So, I have an old camera, I have my new camera, and then that camera that we're filming on is probably the newest one that I own. And when I got it, it was just to fulfill a role. And what I was really excited about was the stuff I was going to create with it, not the camera itself. So I am going to stress this because I'm kind of tired with the whole gear acquisition syndrome. If you're into the whole gear side of things, good for you. That's cool. I'm just not. I like the art, okay? So I can talk shop a little bit, but I'm not going to do it ad nauseum. I think I'm done with that part of my life. I want us to focus on the art, and I want to explore, and I want to talk, and I want to feel, and I want to feel with you. I hope that makes sense. I mean, that was kind of a long-winded way of just saying, let's focus on the art, but that's what I really want to do. I want to focus on the art. And then before I sign off here, if there's something you want to see, you want to go out and you want to go photograph a waterfall, or you want me to go waterfall photographing, just tell me. Be like, you know what? I want to see farms. I want to see clouds. I want to see rocks and mountains and cliffs. I want to see water. I want to see people. I want to see kids. I want to see adults. There's a lot of subject matter. We'll figure it out. I'm a commercial photographer by trade. So that basically means that I know how to take pictures of people and things in the context of commercial use or marketing. But I also like doing a lot of the other stuff, like, just personal photos, landscapes, and things like that. All right, guys. So I'm going to end it there for now. Things to look forward to in the future, Warrior Beat. Go to warriorbeat.org so you can learn more about the charity. This is a charity, a drum art therapy charity. We're just branching out a little bit. Nothing drastic, just easing our way in there, more stuff for more people to do. Go check it out, warriorbeat.org. Follow us at twitter.com/warriorbeatorg, Instagram, warriorbeatorg, Facebook, warriorbeatorg, our website, warriorbeat.org. All right, guys. So thank you so much for like just hanging out with me this first day. It's great. It feels good. Everything's working. You know, we did it. We did it, guys. All right. Take care. Have a great evening.